Alright folks, I want to do a video that mixes politics with the financial markets. Basically, we are going to have a food crisis. Now, that's not news for a lot of folks, but we are going to have a food crisis. Who knows how it's going to play out, where specifically the epicenter will be, but we're going to have a food crisis. Now, a lot of people, conservative people specifically, are very happy about the Donald Trump victory, and they should be. Of course, we're all very happy about it. But there's one dichotomy within the Trump campaign that Mr. Trump will have a very, very difficult time reconciling, if it's even possible to reconcile. Now, folks, don't get me wrong. I voted for Donald J. Trump, okay? And that has actually been on record. I am on record as voting for Donald Trump. You can see the video where I put myself on record as voting for him. I sent out the mail-in ballot. I voted for Donald Trump, and you can see through all of my videos that I've been one of the biggest supporters of the Trump movement. So this is not a criticism of Trump. This is more of a criticism of the overall structure that's way bigger than any one person, any one president, any one government official, or even any one agency. Here's the deal. Mr. Trump went out to the battleground states, most of which are the Rust Belt states, and he of course, made that campaign promise of Make America Great Again. We're going to restore the manufacturing base of America. That means we're going to get those steel companies back up to work. We're going to start building tangible, real things in America. We're going to take those blue-collar workers, millions of blue-collar workers, and we're going to get them back to work. We're going to open up those mines in West Virginia, and we're going to put miners back to work. We are going to make America great again. And that message, of course, especially if you're a blue-collar worker and you've been out of work for years, out of substantive work for years, that resonates. That hits everybody, but especially it hits home to those blue-collar working-class families that are the bedrock of American manufacturing. The problem, though, is that with so much effort being placed towards the manufacturing base, other sectors necessarily have to be ignored. It's like one of those whack-a-mole games. I mean, you can whack one mole, but then another mole pops up, and then you whack that, and the other mole, the same mole that you whacked earlier, pops up again. And it's this constant, whack job, right? And that's sort of what, the problem we have with the economy. Now, blue-collar workers for Trump came out. You saw Hispanics for Trump, African Americans for Trump, Asians for Trump. Teachers for Trump. Every subsection within America came out in full support of Trump, including farmers for Trump. But here's the problem: the farming demographic is severely on the decline. There are fewer and fewer people, fewer and fewer Americans who want to consider farming as a potential career. They don't. I mean, lots of the farming demographic has been gutted. Okay, the average age today of a farmer, I think, is like somewhere around 50 some years old. I mean, that's a pretty old demographic, and a third of farmers are actually older than 65. I mean, retirement age, basically. A third, 33%, are older than the age of 65 years. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, what other occupation has an average age that high, that elevated? See, so we may not consider it as a problem right now at this current level in 2016, at the tail end of 2016, but a generation from now, you've got to imagine that crazy demographic is going to make waves, make significant waves, and we will have an agriculture problem. We will have a food crisis. There's no way to to shimmy those demographics. I mean, there are certain government reports that say, hey, we saw an uptick of people who want to be farmers within the 18 to 34 year old demographic. That's fine. You saw a growth rate. But you got to keep in mind the difference between growth rate, which is a derivative, versus nominal base. Okay, and nominal base meaning how many people are working in those farming jobs today. Nominally, we don't have that many people working in farms today, and the overall trend, the overall growth rate is actually negative. We are losing these farmers more and more on an overall aggregate scale, whether through death or because Johnny Boy doesn't want to be a farmer and wants to move to the big city and become an office worker. Okay, I don't know whatever the circumstances are, we're seeing a severe decline when you look at it from a multi-decade perspective. So those demographic facts will generate some sort of agricultural crisis, a food crisis. The other weird dynamic, though, is again, going back to Donald Trump. Mr. Trump has run sort of like an Alex Jones style campaign, where one of his favorite political targets was U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen. Mr. Trump basically accused the Fed of running a artificial economy, a manufactured economy, a doctored economy, okay? And that's a very common talking point within those who listen to Alex Jones and similar folks. I don't want to get too into whether the economy is artificial. That's for another video. However, it's very interesting that if you do attack Janet Yellen and you do attack the quantitative easing policy that has been a part of the defining characteristic of Ben Bernanke's role within the Fed, that means that you do not like artificially low interest rates and you want the interest rates to be moved higher, or to be at a level which is congruent with the economic conditions. That means, again, the interest rates, if you're being very critical of Yellen, then that means you're hawkish. You're monetarily hawkish. You want the interest rates to move higher. You want the dollar, the greenback, to be stronger. And guess what? The US dollar index is at multi-year record highs. That's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it's way out there. I mean, it's skyrocketed also over recent trading sessions. So it's way up there. So the dollar is crazy strong. Certainly when President-elect Trump becomes President Trump, that you've got to foresee that the interest rates will also move higher. That has put a lot of pressure on commodity markets, and perhaps most pressure on agricultural markets. That's why you're seeing record food price deflation. I've discussed this at length in articles that I wrote for Investor Place and that have been reproduced through mainstream channels such as NASDAQ, MSN Money. So there's record food price deflation, and that's only going to get worse. There's a lot of food stocks. Tyson Farms, their stock just tanked a couple days ago because of poor earnings report, poor earnings performance. And there's other food stocks that are that have this message that we're going to do well in 2017. Tell me, how are you going to do well in 2017 when you have this major headwind of dollar strength, of record dollar strength? Some food companies have stated that we're going to ramp up demand in China. Again, tell me how you're going to do that. I mean, I understand that you're going to try to ramp up demand from China and from international markets, but how are you going to do that successfully with the dollar index being, again, at those record high levels? Because now the Chinese are saying, wait. American products, all American products are now much more expensive relative to us because of that dollar strength. So they're going to look for other avenues to get their food. Other countries that don't have the wealth of China are also going to do the same thing. It doesn't matter, it doesn't make any sense to buy food from the United States when you can get equivalent food from somewhere else at a much cheaper rate. So this is all very problematic. Yes, we're going to rebuild America. We're going to make America great again, but that message was mostly towards the manufacturing base. But by making America great again, making our currency strong and restoring integrity to our economy, we are then hurting by default. Not by choice or because we want to, but by default. If we pursue a policy of making the economy strong for manufacturing, we then take away from the agricultural sector. Because if that dollar continues to move higher and become stronger, the profitability margins for these food stocks, for these food producers and grocery stores, throughout the supply chain of the agricultural sector, they're going to be gutted. Those profitability margins are going to be severely pressured so long as that dollar continues to run amok. So what do? I'm not really sure we have an answer for that. But the other thing, again, we go back to the dynamic of the farming community, the demographic that is being gutted over a very long-term picture. There's a very strange dynamic there where the supply is actually dwindling and the price of food is also dwindling. How does that make any sense? Well, it makes sense right now because I think people just don't realize how bad it is, how bad that farming demographic is. But once it starts to filter through, this weird dynamic where you're seeing food price deflation and also really the supply curve of the farming units that are in the United States, they're on a precipitous cliff. They may not be falling over the cliff right now, but they are on that trajectory where they will fall off. And so we have almost a definite promise that the supply of food will go down because the number of producers are dwindling. That's just demographic reality. And we have record food price deflation. So this strange, explosive dynamic, it may not manifest right now, okay? It may not manifest next year or even in 2018 or even throughout Trump's presidency. Who knows when that dynamic will finally explode. But explode it will, okay? We just don't know when. And so one of the things that you want to be very careful and very cautious about, and you want to keep a keen eye on this. You got to look at agriculture. You got to take a look at those food stocks and see how they're adjusting to this deflationary environment. How they react and how they succeed in this trying time will tell you a lot about what we can do, the solutions that we can deploy moving forward. If there is a solution, I think those demographics are just so horrendous. So anyways, I just want to bring that information out to you. Unfortunately, I don't have a number of great solutions to this problem other than, just be careful, just look at this. Maybe there might be a trading opportunity here, both on the short side and on the long side. We'll have to see. We'll just have to, wait for the data and see how this all works out. Maybe, Mr. Trump is a lot smarter than even the most ardent supporters are giving him credit for, and maybe he has this brilliant idea to help both manufacturing and agriculture. Who knows? Okay, I mean, he's proven people wrong so many times, so maybe he does have a great solution to that. And that, if he finds a solution to that, man, this is a true icon. Donald Trump should be on our currency if he is able to figure this one out. Anyways, for now, I just want to bring that information out to you, and we'll see you next time.